Hey everybody, welcome to the Life Size City YouTube channel. I'm Michael, urban designer, author, and host of the global documentary series about urbanism. Yeah, the Life Size City. You might have seen the last video that I uploaded here on the channel. I did a little walkthrough, a little exploration of the town planning video game Townscaper. And yes, as I feared, I ended up playing it far too long. I was screwing around with all sorts of different cities and having a great time. You might like this little charming town that I created. Beautiful life-size streets and canals and architecture, not a dry eye in the house. And then you zoom out a little bit at the right angle and you reveal Love City. We gotta love our cities, man. And then the reveal continues. You zoom out and there is the payoff. I'm gonna add the code down in the description if you wanna copy paste it into Townscaper and continue playing around with it. Today we're gonna mix urbanism with another passion of mine, football. Oh, I miss going to football matches here in 2020. I miss a lot of things in 2020, as I'm sure you do as well. But just hopping on my bike, riding 10, 15 minutes over to the National Stadium to see FC Copenhagen play a match, oh, I really miss it. They really suck this season, so that kind of helps a little bit. And hey, what I'm talking about is what some other countries call soccer. So every time you hear me say football, unless I define it with American football or something like that, then all you need to do is think soccer. I'm working on an urban design project at the moment, which led me indirectly to think about urban stadiums. And in preparing for this video, I was thinking, should I use the word stadia for the 8 million times I'm probably gonna say it in the course of this video? Because you'd be like, ooh, look at him go all fancy and shit using the correct Latin plural form for stadium. But I thought about it, and stadiums is acceptable linguistically, and it just rolls off my tongue easier. So I'm gonna stick with that. And that was a preemptive strike against potential comments. I have seen a lot of cool stadiums in my work as an urban designer working in cities around the world, so I went exploring on the internet and I discovered a whole bunch more. And not just football stadiums. First of all, there are some serious issues with modern stadiums. None other than John Oliver from Last Week Tonight covers this topic in the American context. There's a link to this in the description. Have a look at it, man. It is absolutely fascinating. As he says, most modern stadiums look like they've been designed by a coked up Willy Wonka. And he's not wrong. When I look at American stadiums and arenas, I am always completely blown away by the parking around the building. Like this one, FedEx Field, somewhere vaguely in the vicinity of Washington, D.C. Look at that. Look at all that asphalt. Massive heat islands. Buildings that are only used a handful of days every year. And even when they're not being used, they use more electricity than a small Scandinavian town. When I was looking around the world on Google Earth for stadiums in cities, I found this one in Sapporo in the north of Japan. When I was looking at it from a distance, I went, what? Look at all of that parking. Look at all of those cars around that stadium. I was blown away. I didn't expect to see that in Japan. But then I zoomed in and I realized it was just Japanese homes and beautiful life-sized Japanese streets all around the stadium. But hey, I've noticed that in America there is a trend to bring stadiums back into the urban area after being placed in the suburbs for decades and decades. It is the age of urbanism after all. But I'm thinking, isn't it like trying to squeeze a gorilla into a birdcage? Isn't it hard to make it fit properly? Because it's not about the stadium anymore, the place where people watch other people play sports. It's about all the other stuff around it. It's about that huge flock of developers who are tagging along for the ride. Okay, here's an idea. You know how in animal group terminology there are plural forms for the groups of animals? Like in English, they're always really wild. There's a school of fish, but a murder of crows, a memory of elephants, a pride of lions, and so on. What would be the animal group terminology for developers? Would it be like a profit of developers, a destruction of developers? I don't know, but I'm sure you have some ideas, so let's have some fun down in the comments. Anyway, it's all the same buzzwords. Mixed-use development, stadium districts. Man, in the States, it is so hard to get that weird zoning culture that they developed off of their back, so they just do the same thing and call it something different. Oh, this is an arts district, an entertainment district, and this will be a stadium district. In most cases, the stadium developments are not used to strengthen the existing urban fabric. They are, in effect, privately owned areas operating for profit. Mini amusement parks, if you like. Interestingly, the opposite seems to be happening in some places in Europe. Football clubs, for example, they want to expand, they want to have a bigger stadium, have more profit as well, so they have to move outside of the cities to find the space to do so. This is one of the extreme examples, Allianz Arena. Sure, it's Germany. There are trains and even a metro connection to this stadium, but there are still 11,000 parking spots. When you search for stadiums on Google or here on YouTube, there is loads of content about the world's biggest, wildest, craziest, most impressive stadiums. There's always two shots, one of the building from outside from afar and one shot of the interior. The last one looks the same, doesn't matter what stadium it is, anywhere in the world. There is never any comment about the context of that building in the urban theater around it. And yeah, this stadium is on almost every single one of those lists. Whoa, dude, it's big, it's impressive, it's shiny, it's got some pretty lights, it's just like dangling keys in front of a baby. Oh, wow, so shiny and cool. This is the home of Bayern Munich Football Club, one of the biggest clubs in the world, and it's not even in Munich proper anymore, but let's hope that it's at least somewhere in Bayern. So let's get to it, my list of cool urban stadiums. I looked for stadiums that were snugly nestled into the city. I didn't go for stadiums that were near neighborhoods like Cape Town Stadium and many others like it around the world. I went for stadiums that were woven into the intricate urban fabric, interacting with the neighborhoods around it. I also went for larger cities and stadiums of a certain size. Man, when you're doing this with so many stadiums around the world, you gotta draw the line somewhere. Basically, stadiums that look like they fit. So here are 22 cool urban stadiums. For sentimental reasons, I'm going to start at home. Parken is Denmark's national stadium and home to FC Copenhagen. It was built in 1992 to replace a stadium from 1911 on the same location. It's in the heart of a densely populated neighborhood with good public transport connections and, of course, loads of bike parking. Seriously, parking my bike at a match is the biggest parking challenge I ever face in my life. Actually, getting it afterwards probably would be. Cycling home with thousands of other fans is, however, pretty fantastic, rain or shine. Here's a fun fact. Off to the left is a traffic playground that's been there for 70 years. Many streets and intersections where kids go to practice cycling in the city. Completely unrelated to this video, but I don't care. It's cool. When I lived in London, I would go to Arsenal matches at Highbury. Coming out of the underground, walking along streets lined with terraced houses, and then all of a sudden, turning left and wham, entering the stadium. It was wonderful. Now, Highbury closed in 2006 and is redeveloped as a residential complex, but it's still one of my favorites. The grass in the middle is now a communal garden. Arsenal moved to a new stadium, currently called Emirates Stadium, under half a kilometer away. It is still super urban, but you can see the difference between the way that both of them interact with the surrounding area. Another cool one is Selhurst Park in Croydon, south of London, home of the football club Crystal Palace. I went to a match there once back in the day, and I have absolutely no idea why I did it or who I was with, but it was a great atmosphere and experience. The world's largest floating stage and football stadium is called The Float in Singapore. It's multi-use and was supposed to be temporary, but it has proved to be so popular that it's still around and even slated for expansion. I like creative use of waterways and urban space. Globally, Estadio Alberto Armando in Buenos Aires is a legendary stadium, more commonly known by its nickname, La Bombonera. It's the home of Boca Juniors Football Club, and its design with that one flat side is iconic. But it also has great acoustics because of that flat side. I was thinking I'd get lots of cool urban stadium love from South and Central America, and man, I wasn't wrong. Check out this one in La Paz, Bolivia. It's the highest national football stadium in the world at 3,367 meters. Visiting teams hate playing there because of the altitude. FIFA has a rule that no World Cup qualifying matches can be played above 3,000 meters, but this stadium has an exemption. But let's just take a minute and zoom back out on La Paz. Look at all of those dark rectangles around the city. Some of them might be parks, sure, but I zoomed in on some and many are football pitches. Like this one. I have no idea where it is or what it's called. There are so many like it in the city, and that is so cool. And then there's this one in Sao Paulo, Brazil, home of FC Sao Paulo. And this one in Mexico City, with a bullfighting ring next to it, which I think nowadays, for many of us around the world, is a bit awkward. The spiritual home of Irish football was Lansdowne Road, which was demolished to make way for a new stadium on the same spot it occupied since 1872. The new Aviva Stadium looks modern, but it still fits nicely into the urban context. The design of the roof is all wavy like that, so it doesn't block light from the neighbors' homes. Then, as I was sailing over Dublin on Google Earth like Mother in Ridley Scott's series Raised by Wolves, I saw this place, Croke Park, which is Europe's third largest stadium. Who knew? Well, apart from all the Irish. It's primarily used for Gaelic sports like hurling and Gaelic football and has been in that neighborhood in various incarnations since 1884. Wild. I had a look at American cities as well. Now, back in the day, there were probably so many stadiums that integrated so well with the neighborhoods they were a part of. But then along came car-centric urban development and urban renewal, and so much of that changed. Nowadays, it is slim pickings, but I have to include this one. The baseball stadium Wrigley Field in Chicago. In the context of this video and this list, it's my favorite in the States. It looks so cool. In a recent redevelopment, the Chicago Cubs added some public space called the Park at Wrigley. Even cooler. Originally called City Stadium, Lambeau Field with a capacity of 81,441 is located in a city with a population of just 104,000, which is wild to me. It's the home of the Green Bay Packers. When your stadium is that dominant in the community, it has to work with the community. Detroit has 3 stadiums and arenas squeezed into their downtown, which is pretty wild. It doesn't look very pretty from the air or from the ground, I can tell you from personal experience. I'm not including it on the list, but I just wanted to mention one thing. Regular citizens, mostly people of color in Detroit, are getting evicted from their homes for owing just 100 lousy bucks on their water bill. But some of those arenas there owe hundreds of thousands of dollars on their water bill, and yet nobody's going knocking on their doors and trying to collect it. That just pisses me off. Number 13 on the list is Europe's largest stadium, Camp Nou in Barcelona. And no, it's not Barcelona, that's Spanish. It's Barcelona in Catalan, the language they actually speak in Catalonia. Anyway, with a capacity of 99,354, you'd think they could just round it up sometimes, don't you? But anyway, it's also the 4th largest stadium in the world. While it's harder to get such a massive stadium to nestle cozily into a neighborhood, Camp Nou, which just means new field, seems to manage. Looking at Camp Nou, I thought about American stadiums and the massive footprint that they occupy. So here's Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. Look at that parking, 16,000 parking spots. So I was wondering, how many Camp Nous could fit into their parking lot? So I had a look. 10 of Europe's largest stadium can fit in the parking lot of Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. What about that FedEx field that we were looking at earlier? 11. Absolutely mind-blowing. And it really also should be food for thought. Down the road from Barcelona is, of course, Madrid. Santiago Bernabéu is another iconic stadium, home of Real Madrid. Looks pretty cool in that location in the neighborhood. They're doing a massive redesign, and it's going to end up looking like this. They'll add a roof and wrap that whole puppy in a shell, along with some renovations and improvements, which include, surprise, surprise, retail space. I don't know how you feel about it. Kind of bombastic in that neighborhood to me, but hey, I don't live there. I don't have to look at it every day as I'm walking down to the supermarket. And maybe you think it's cool, and fair enough. This is the smallest stadium I'm covering today. It's in Belgrade, Serbia, and the home of Fudbalski Klub Vostovac, who play in the Serbian Super League. It opened in 2013 on the site of the old stadium from 1912, but what's interesting about this is that it's placed on top of a new shopping center. One of the few professional rooftop stadiums in the world and fully compliant with all UEFA rules. Cool space management. I'm not a fan of shopping malls, but this strangely appeals to me. In Seville, I found some cool stuff too. In the south of the city is Estadio Benito Villamarin, home of Real Betis. 3 kilometers to the north is another stadium, this one home of Sevilla FC, Estadio Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan. Latin countries just love naming their stadiums after people with long names. And you know what? It kind of beats corporate sponsorship any day of the week. Heading farther north to Antwerp, Belgium, and we have the old Olympic Stadium from when Antwerp hosted the Summer Games in 1920. It's kind of wild to think about how many smaller cities hosted the Summer Games back in the day. Antwerp, Amsterdam, Stockholm, Helsinki. When you zoom in, you see something cool. The parking lot has football pitches painted on it so it can be used by the neighborhood when there isn't a match, which is most of the time. That's a nice little detail. I spent a lot of time in Oslo a couple years back with a Norwegian girlfriend. I'm including Bislett Stadium simply because I rode my bike past it all the time and it's just really nice. It's been multi-use since it was built in 1922, including track and field, speed skating, bandy, football, you name it. And it fits so nicely into the neighborhood. Even after the massive renovations in 2005, they really just kept it real. Flying over Athens, I spotted this stadium, the home of Panionios FC. It's been around since 1939. There are plans for a new stadium and athletic center on the same spot. They want it to look like this, and it'll include commercial space and car parking. Local opposition has, however, put the brakes on the project. The opposition is focused on how more commercial space and parking will cause traffic congestion in the neighborhood. That is music to my ears. Citizens fighting for a life-size neighborhood against the Goliath of profit. Staying in Athens for a bit, who wouldn't want this stadium in their neighborhood? The world's only stadium made out of white marble. Hey, you want to go for a run up at the stadium around the corner? You know, the one built 2,350 years ago? Yeah, okay, dude. Like many stadiums, it was refurbished. Built in 330 BCE out of limestone, it was rebuilt in white marble in 144 BCE. It was abandoned in the 4th century, uncovered in 1869, and hosted the opening and closing ceremonies of the first modern Olympics in 1896. This is also where the Olympic flame is handed over to the host nation. So amazing. Now this isn't a top 22 list. This is just a 22 list of cool urban stadiums, but I can still have a favorite. And it's got to be this one. In Italy, the club Napoli, they recently renamed their stadium in honor of Diego Maradona, who had an amazing legacy at the club. But this is the original Estadio Diego Armando Maradona in Buenos Aires. It was built in 2003 on the spot of the old stadium from 1940. It's the home of Argentinos Juniors, the club where Maradona made his professional debut. Tucked so perfectly into the rich layout of the neighborhood. And there's the list. Which one of those stadiums would you want to go and see a football match in, or a concert, or whatever? Now, I've probably missed a whole bunch of cool urban stadiums all over the world, and you'll probably tell me all about that in the comments. But hey, bring it on. Let's share the knowledge. As stadium design continues to go ballistic and crazy, tipping the scales of good urban design over to a place that nobody wants or needs to be, it's important now more than ever before to remember how we used to do things and, like in so many areas of urban design, go back to the future. Here's a shout out to a friend of mine, Anders Wild. He's a photographer here in Copenhagen, and he has traveled far and wide to football stadiums to document them and the people who use them. He has an amazing collection of photographs on his website. Check it out if that's your thing. And there you have it. Please hit subscribe, hit like on this video, buy me a coffee if you want over at buymeacoffee.com/Mikael, Mikael. I am Mikael colville-andersen. I am so happy to have you here, and I hope to see you next time. See you later.